In life, we need to put our eyes on God and never look back, never take him off of him, never change our plan. We need to put our eyes on God and keep him there. We read in the Bible the story about Simon, right? You know, Jesus is out on the water and he's telling him, take my hand, take my hand. Simon walks out on that water and he's walking on it, right? But there's a big storm behind Jesus. And Jesus is telling him, keep your faith in me, look at me, keep your attention, keep your eyes on me, right? And then Simon is getting scared. He doesn't know, he looks away because he's too scared. And then he sinks and he drowns. But who's the first person to help him? It's Jesus. He sticks his hand in the water and he saves him. The moral of that is understanding that the times that we don't have our eyes on God are the toughest times. They're during the storm. Because I think a lot of times in life, especially in my life, is when everything feels like it's going downhill, that's when we turn away from God the most. That's when we, lose sight of him completely because we kind of feel as a victim, or we feel like we're getting attacked. But I think this is the beauty of, belief and faith, because there's two things in life, faith and fear. They're both invisible, but you have to choose one of them. And 9 times out of 10, we choose fear. That's just a sad reality. I think the world that we grew up in and the world that, we're in today, fear is such a easy thing to choose because, if I'm afraid of it, I'm just never going to do it again, or I'm going to just, stay back or be conservative, which I think is wrong. I think this is the wrong attitude with anything in life. I think faith is the biggest thing. Go out and get it. Have faith in yourself or have faith in God. Have faith in whatever you're chasing, that it's going to work out and it's going to be good. Now, I don't mean chasing in the way of like chasing a person, but I'm saying chasing, success or something in your life. John 13:7 talks about, we don't know what he's doing in our life now, but we will know soon. We will know eventually. I think that resonates with me a lot because this verse especially helped me, with depression and everything. But looking back at my entire life, all the hardships, all the battles I went through, all the disgusting actions I did, all the things that I regret in life and live with guilt, during those times I thought, what is happening to me? I lost all sight of God. I lost everything, right? I felt like I was completely gone as a person and everything was downhill and in the trash. Today I look at myself and I feel like I put so much effort and so much work into myself and I feel so close to God and I put everything into myself to become this person, right? But then I think about it more and I understand that without what happened to me, I wouldn't be this person. I wouldn't, be who I am today and have a clear vision of myself and my future and my goals. I wouldn't be, as faithful as I am today. And that's just the truth. So I'm grateful for it all. I didn't know what he was doing then, but I do know now. And it's that simple. It relates just like that. I think the biggest thing for us to understand is the word understand doesn't correlate to everything. It only correlates to things that we can understand. And what do I mean by this? Objects or concepts or things in life that have a definite answer or have, a concept that you have to understand to use it. That could be anything in life. It could be stocks. You have to understand it to be able to do it. It could be a Rubik's Cube. You have to understand a Rubik's Cube to solve it. It goes all over the spectrum. But you can't understand life in general. What do I mean by that? I think a lot of people think they understand life to a T or stuff like that, or understand what's happening in their life, but you don't. You have a good idea. You have a theory. But I'm someone who's been trying to understand everything, and I've come to understand that I can't understand it. God has a plan for me, or he has a path for me, and I could try to control my habits and control things in my life that I could do right now to, put me down that path and, complete my goals and follow my dreams, right, and become successful, right? And that's my understanding of my life. But outside of that, when it comes to, the philosophical world and psychological world, I don't have an understanding. No one does. Because there's infinite amount of answers. There's an infinite amount of answers. The thoughts you think in a day, you can't understand all 1,000,000 of them or how many ever you think in a day. Whatever you say in life, sometimes you slip up. You can't understand why you said that, or certain actions you did. You can't understand that. All you can understand is, certain scenarios, certain things happen for you to think this or say this. I think a lot of times we try to get such an answer. We try to get that definite answer to our problems, but you'll never get it. You get an answer or you get a solution eventually, but you'll never get that answer. I think a lot of the times we just have to stop seeking that answer. That's how we understand life, is understanding that there's a lot of things in life we can't understand and we won't get the answer for. And this is honestly a root to a lot of depression and anxiety and just, a lot of unhealthy habits in life. I think especially, with young kids today, or teenagers, young adults, the biggest thing is they feel, there's so much pressure on them when there's really not. The only pressure that's on you is the pressure that you put on yourself. How much can you handle? How much can you push yourself? How much can you do? Because I'm going to say the bearing the weight of other people is a lot more pressure than you think. And not like that, but meaning like it's a lot more pressure than you need in a way. I think I've come to the understanding, I put all the pressure on myself. All the pressure from the outside world and other people doesn't matter to me no longer. It's just the pressure I put on myself, and I'm willing to push myself to the absolute limit. I'm willing to put myself under more pressure than anyone else would to get to my success. But if someone else were to put this pressure on me, I would kind of fight them and think of, they're out to get me and stuff like that. And I think the biggest thing is we have to understand, how to be alone and disciplined with ourselves. Because if you can't be disciplined with yourself, you can't be disciplined with God. You're just going to fall into that trap of being lukewarm. It's that simple. Like every person I see today, every single person I'm around, it's just lukewarm Christianity. And I think the biggest thing is, they'll have sex. Oh, it's whatever, or they'll drink, they'll commit lustful actions, they'll sin. But I'm going to go to church on Sunday and it's all going to be all right. This is a false reality that we have to stop living, all right? If you can't live a faithful and happy life alone with God, church means nothing. And I stand by that. You can argue me all you want on that, but I stand by that. Church is nothing if your outside one-on-one relationship is not strong with God. If you're not living freely with God, you can't live freely in the outside world. And that's something that probably makes no sense to you, but you really have to think about it to understand that. I think the other thing is, people try speaking so much about God and, being really like out there about their faith and really, talk to people about it, but it's almost in a judgmental way, right? I see a lot of people judging others for not having a certain faith or a certain belief. I think the biggest thing for us to understand is that, judging is not a good thing. I don't know why we like to judge. The reason we judge is because there's flaws that we know in ourselves and we're trying to pick it out of other people. But some of the most faithful people I know in my life are not the ones who go to church. They're not the ones that, follow the norm or follow the common. They're not the ones that talk about God, period. The ones that have that one-on-one relationship that you don't know about. They're the ones that have strength in God. They're the ones that understand what it takes to be a faithful person. And a lot of times for this, judgment and the things that people like to do, the lukewarm Christianity, is because of fear. Like I said in the beginning of the video, there's two things in life that we have that we can't see: faith and fear, and you have to choose one. And I said 9 times out of 10, people will choose fear. And almost every single person that I know chooses fear. And that's true. And it's just the truth, because they're afraid of God or afraid of someone, judging them or not being normal. Right? And yes, I do agree with, I only fear God, but there's a difference between that fear and the fear that I'm talking about. Right? You have to get an understanding of why we keep our eyes on God. Right? You have to know that you won't get your answers immediately. With God, it's a slow process, but it's all worth it. The road to heaven is going to feel like hell. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. And that's why you're going to take your eyes off during this process. But you have to understand that you can't get too far away, because God will always be by you. He will be by your side no matter what. No matter how far you go, no matter what happens, he will always be by your side. But you have to have the mindset of, I'm here. Eyes on God, right? I'm here. Oh, this happened, or I veered a little off. What happened? All right, let me get my eyes back on God. All right, we're here, we're here, we're here. Oh, I lost sight a little bit. What happened? What did I do? This and that. Let me repent. All right, eyes back on God. We're here, we're here. And that's just a continuous process the entire time that you have to get to this habit. And it's very hard. It took a lot for me. It took a lot of sinning, a lot of lusting, a lot of, mental health problems, a lot of things in my life to really get to this point. But in the end, it was all worth it, and it was all part of God's plan. Because I prayed so many times to, be more faithful or have more strength or whatever it is. And going through all these things that he put me through, I really thought that was it. And then when it all came back to me and I found myself again and I got this mental clarity, I all realized this is all just answering my prayers, right? Just because something bad in life that happens doesn't mean he's not answering your prayer. And that's something you also have to understand. So just keep your eyes on God and never look back. Never take him off. Never put him anywhere else. Just put him on God and keep him there.